Wow. Here is a story I was not expecting to be telling. So today I'm going to be talking about, and hopefully for the last time, Leo Gura from actualized.org. A guy who is notorious for making incredibly absurd and outlandish claims, which led to me calling him out as being delusional. Leo has just recently posted a new video acknowledging that what I said about him being delusional was pretty much on the money. So yeah, glad to see you finally make it to the rational side, Leo. Well done, mate. Now, before we get into the details of this situation, I want to make it very clear that I absolutely commend Leo for this. And I mean that sincerely. It takes a lot of courage to admit when you've fucked up, and even though he does dance around with his words a little bit here, I believe this is a solid attempt by him to rectify his previous mistakes, and in the process do some very necessary housekeeping within his actualized.org community. So again, full marks to Leo in that regard. And keep in mind that this video is not intended to wail on him personally, even though I might highlight a few uncomfortable truths. But as for the audience of cult-like drones who make up the membership of actualized.org, the ones who spent the last 18 months messaging me saying that Leo does indeed have psychic powers, or that I was misrepresenting him, or that I just wasn't awakened enough to understand the intricate depths of what Leo was saying, yeah, I might be a tad less charitable in what I have to say about them. So let's start with a quick look at this clip I'm talking about, where Leo actually acknowledges, as I accurately described in my video, that perhaps he had taken just a little bit too much.
Because if you start to use these psychedelics chronically, what's going to happen is that they will erode your mind and your sense of reality, and your life will turn upside down, and you will stop being able to think straight. And in fact, that did happen to me. Another trap that can happen and danger is the danger of misinterpreting various kinds of mystical visions that you can have on psychedelics. So you're going to have all sorts of different visions, and insights will be revealed to you. But the thing is that you still have an ego. And the ego is going to try to make sense of all these crazy experiences you've had. And I guarantee you it's going to corrupt them, and it's going to try to co-opt them and to use them towards its own selfish purposes. And here is where you run into the problem of Zen devilry, false notions of enlightenment, a messiah complex. You get a giant big head about all this. You start to proclaim yourself to be God, and you start to tell everybody that you're God and how great you are and how powerful you are. And now you think you have abilities to heal people and to change the world, to awaken everybody. And this can get very dangerous. You might get the idea to build a cult. You might get the idea that you can now you're qualified to teach people. And then, of course, what you're going to be teaching them is some corrupt version of this, of the truth. And so just be very careful, because your mind is very self-deceptive, and it's especially self-deceptive when you come down from a high mystical experience.
Now, as I said before, there is some linguistic dancing around here, with Leo saying it might do this to you, it might make you think like this. Whereas really he should have said, it made me think like this. Because after all, he was the one saying all of this stuff. So Leo shouldn't be saying you as in the audience. He should be saying I as in him. But anyway, the events he describes are pretty much a one-to-one match of the kind of juvenile claims he was making last year. So I interpret this as him holding his hands up and saying, hey guys, I acknowledge I was acting like a bit of a knob there, but I'm ready to put all that behind me now. When you watch that first video of mine back and put it in the context of what Leo himself has just admitted, then it really is a completely reasonable assessment of the situation. So why did the actualized community fly off the handle over it? We'll get into that more later, but for now I want to explore the reasons why I think Leo is making efforts to turn a corner like this. My take is that he simply doesn't want to be the king of quantum dingbats anymore, and instead wants to cultivate more of an image that people outside of the actualized bubble can take seriously. Because to be honest, this is something he struggles with. With his own history of preposterous outbursts, he doesn't have a great reputation apart from with other kooky people, and I think he wants to change this. Secondly, I think his ego is now in a better place, which allows this kind of insight, because for a long time he was really doubling down on this kind of delusional narrative. But I think he's had a wake-up call through the kind of recent PR disasters of his interactions with Conor Murphy and the very unfortunate events which led to the suicide of one of the members of actualized.org. Now, with events like these, let's take Conor Murphy as an example. Then you could argue that they weren't following the teachings. But as per this confession, Leo himself wasn't following the teachings either. He was just blurting out random egotistical shit that he got in his head while he was being high, which is exactly what Conor Murphy does. I mean, realistically, there are no teachings as if it's some kind of grand plan that Leo's mapped out. It's a YouTube channel where Leo talks about stuff he wants to talk about. And sometimes that content is interesting and insightful. And sometimes it's drug-induced bollocks. Anyway, I digress. I also gave some additional advice in that first video that Leo should try poking his head outside of the actualized bubble once in a while and challenging his ideas against a less sycophantic audience. And fuck me sideways, look at this. The lad's gone and done it. Well, almost. I mean, he is now talking with other YouTubers, although I would say the conversations themselves are fairly mundane and pandering, but hey, baby steps. So let's go back to the video he put out and put this whole thing in sequence. I said he was delusional, he now admits he was delusional. I said he had an inflated messiah complex, he now admits he had an inflated messiah complex. I said he should chill out on the psychedelics, ground himself and start interacting with other people outside of actualized. Well, what can I say? It looks like Leo and your boy Rob here finally agree, and the world is a happy, rational place. That wasn't so hard, was it? So that brings us nicely back to the membership over there at actualized.org, who now appear to be in a bit of a quandary. And let me be clear that what I'm about to say doesn't apply to all of them. This is a generalization here. As with any community, there is a mix of people, and I've had some really good chats with a few of the members, so they aren't all bad. That said, it is my impression that the vast majority of them are complete fucking imbeciles, and those are the ones I'm addressing here. So, from me, Rob, Adeptus Psychonautica, to you, actualized.org membership. I was right, you were wrong, deal with it. You let your fanaticism and lack of critical thinking turn actualized into a kind of dogmatic cult, where even though it was plainly obvious to anyone with a scrap of common sense that Leo was acting a teeny bit strange, none of you had the spine to speak up. I mean, the guy was talking about being the chosen messiah of the universe and unlocking psychic superpowers, all because he managed to squirt some 5-MEO DMT up his bumhole and get high. I mean, do I really need to point out how hilariously absurd this is? And again, this is not me criticising Leo's subjective experiences, which I'm sure were extremely profound to him, but the inability of the actualized community to simply say, whoa there, Leo, maybe this whole messiah routine is just your ego getting carried away. Yeah, the inability of any of you to do that is embarrassing. You guys, as a community, you took the ungrounded, unintegrated ravings of a guy struggling with a messiah complex and you turned it into a fucking religion, with Leo as the high priest of bullshit. Statements that the guy himself has now disowned, you took as gospel truth, to the point where you would come after people like me for stating the blatantly obvious. The emperor has no clothes. Now, the funny thing is that actualized.org consider themselves to be the pinnacle of truth seekers, psychedelic explorers, and free thinkers.
You serious?
When the reality is that they are very much mindless drones who swallow whatever Leo says and have a fucking meltdown if someone like me dares to question him. And this is exactly why people constantly ask the question, is actualized a cult? And it's not because they think Leo is swanning around in hooded robes sexually abusing people. It's because you, the membership of Actualized, act like a fucking cult. Now, of course, Leo himself has done a video on this topic explaining why Actualized is not a cult. And this is kind of ridiculous because you don't get to say that, mate. It's not up to you. The cult-like behaviour is happening around you and you aren't in control of it. So simply announcing, no, it's not a cult, doesn't stand for shit. No more than it does when any other person associated with the cult says, it's not a cult. I mean, do you think Tom Cruise saying Scientology is not a cult makes that statement true? You know, just perhaps consider for a moment that the guy being fapped over by a million zealots doesn't have the most objective opinion here. What do you think? Anyway, piss taken aside, I want to make it absolutely crystal clear that I do not think Leo is directly trying to start a cult. And I've said this over and over in my previous videos. And I also think these recent steps he's taken to ground his content in reality are designed to combat some of the absurd bullshit his fanatics have been spouting in his defence. So again, I've got to give credit where credit's due. Kudos to Leo for that, and I just hope it isn't too little too late, because these things can spiral out of control. Now, I'm sure someone's getting defensive and will ask the question, well, why do you give a shit? Why are you so happy about all of this? And the answer is the same thing I've said since the beginning of my channel. I want the psychedelic discourse to be rational rather than irrational. Your subjective experience is your subjective experience, and I would never try and take that away from you. But when you fail to pass the difference between the subjective and the objective, well, that's when people's grip on reality comes apart, and you end up with cases like Sonny, the guy from Actualized who took his own life, because he genuinely believed he was transcending the dream, leaving a wife and kids behind to pick up the pieces. That's why I give a shit. Now, being rational isn't the same thing as being materialist or closed-minded. It simply means that you don't act like a completely mindless bellend and instead approach things from the perspective of reason. And that's something sadly lacking in the current psychedelic discourse. And I want to do my small part in correcting for that. And I know I might sound like a bit of an arsehole here, but I'm not totally unsympathetic to what this means for you guys at Actualized. It's not easy to have your belief system smash wide open, but that doesn't mean it's not necessary or that there isn't something to be learned here. And if you don't want to listen to me, then at least take a page out of God Emperor Leo's book and be big enough to take a long, hard look at yourself in the mirror and admit that, hey, maybe you fucked up. Maybe you were part of this whole silly debacle and that you enabled Leo's own delusion by not having the spine to challenge him. Even outside of this whole messianic healing bullshit nonsense, there are still many other bizarre offshoots to this personality cult of Leo that would make North Korea blush. So let's have a quick reality check. Leo is the greatest intellectual or spiritual master in the world. No, he's just a dude. He's a dude who read some books, just like the rest of us. Leo is the most bold and daring psychonaut of our time. No, he's just a dude who hasn't actually been doing psychedelics for very long. And based on some of his outbursts, he doesn't even seem to handle them particularly well. Leo has a flawless understanding of science and the universe. No, he's just a dude. He's a dude on YouTube. Leo is a culturally experienced and worldly person. No, he's just a dude. Still quite a young dude who doesn't seem to have much experience at anything outside of his little bubble in his corner of the US. I mean, this is a guy who thinks going on retreat means staying at home and watching porn in the bath. Am I missing something here? Now, don't get me wrong, he's an interesting dude, an insightful dude, and there's nothing wrong at all with being just a dude. I think we should all strive to be just a dude and be the best version of that dude we can be. I mean, it's just so fucking pretentious and unnecessary to try and paint either yourself or another person as some kind of uberhuman, and it inevitably looks ridiculous. So let's just chill with the personality cult, okay? And finally, pointing out the flaws in someone's thinking or ideology isn't the same as hating them, and it's incredibly juvenile how some people can't make this distinction. I don't hate Leo, I don't hate actualized.org, I simply hate bullshit, and I called it out in my circle of friends, in society at large, or even when random guys on YouTube are getting carried away with themselves on a subject I have a personal interest in. Now, I think this pretty much closes the book on my whole actualized saga. I'm going to chalk this one up as a flawless victory for the side of rationality, and hopefully we can put this to bed. One last thing I will mention is that a couple of months ago, Leo Gura sent me an invitation inviting me to a conversation where he said he would put me straight on all my misunderstandings of his work. And he ended the message with the ominous challenge, "If you dare," as if he thinks I have a problem taking on any of his ideas. Now, obviously, I said yes, because I think it would be very healthy for Leo to have a conversation where his ideas actually get challenged. And since then, unfortunately, it looks like Leo's lost his nerve and he stopped answering my replies to the conversation that he started. Okay. As you can see, I chased him up a few times, I was very courteous in the dialogue, and on multiple occasions I offered him an out, saying, look, if you've lost interest, then it's fine, just let me know. Now, I mention this because it's a common delusion by his followers that Leo is like a conversational juggernaut who would destroy any opposition. And I think what I've shown in this whole video is that Leo is just some dude, and in my specific case, I think he's actively avoiding me. And that's fine, I'm not entitled to his time. But if he didn't want to talk to me, then why bother reaching out in the first place? I think what happened is that he had a little spurt of testosterone and thought for a moment that he was like Johnny Concrete, but once that wore off, he realised he'd probably gotten carried away with himself. Again, like he does, and then he scampered off back to his safe space. So Leo, if you want to talk, I would be more than happy to host you, if you dare. But if you're just going to run off, then dude, don't waste my fucking time, or at least have the common courtesy to say, I changed my mind. Apart from the fact that you don't like being called out on your bullshit, I don't think there's a huge amount of daylight between us, and I think it would be a very interesting and informative conversation. So if you ever grow up here, give me a shout. As always, I would like to say a big thank you to everyone who has supported this channel, especially these amazing guys who do so via Patreon. And if you want to join them and be immortalised within the credits, along with some other exclusive content, then please consider becoming a patron. The link is in the channel bar on my homepage. And yeah, even more celebrations. The channel just hit a landmark of 20,000 subscribers, which is awesome. And I want to express my gratitude to all of you guys who sat through one of my videos or engaged with me in some other way. If you want to chat with me and become part of our community of rational psychonauts, then join our Discord or subreddit. Again, the links are in the channel banner. Okay, that's it for now. I'm still officially on my summer break to spend some time with chilling with my wife and kids. So videos are going to be a little bit sporadic until like the end of August, but stay tuned. And as always, thanks for watching.